Also ordered the April 11th meeting of the Park and Recreation Committee. Starting with commissioner updates. Scott?
Up to date tomorrow.
All right. Kate?
So I met with Tim and Alicia and Jen Gold about, I know we're going to be talking later about tennis courts, but so we had a meeting, Parks and Rec, and with Jen Gold, she's our liaison from school committee to Parks and Rec, and I'm the liaison from Parks and Rec to school committee. So just getting the ideas flowing, and I saw it's on the agenda, so I don't want to steal too much, but we did have a meeting about tennis courts.
Aaron, any updates?
No.
I guess I will say the CPC has met a number of times, continues to meet. And there's ongoing discussion about the CPC surcharge and funding and many of those things. That continuing process. I would say for the moment, why don't we skip over acceptance of minutes and go on to the request for review.
So we are representatives of Girl Scout Troop 69088, and we would like to borrow the Bay Park field on April 23rd from 4:30 to 7:30. And we would like to run a Girl Scout field day, after which we will make sure the park is completely clean of any trash that we brought or have already existed there.
And normally there would be a fee, $25?
Yep, per hour. Yep.
Per hour.
Mhm.
Per hour.
Yep.
Very good. And we do have the option of waiving that. I have no issue. No issue. Anybody care to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept waiving the fee for the Girl Scout gathering at Fay Park on 4/23.
And I will second that. Okay, and we are partially remote, so is a roll call. Scott?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
Kate?
Yes.
I am also a yes. Very good.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming.
All right, yeah, why don't we go on to Conservation Trust Commission? Mustard Bowl. Mustard.
All right, you want to do your spiel, my friends?
Rick Finley, the Conservation Trust, we will be having a competitive garlic mustard bowl on Earth Day. I think from 2 to 5 May,
You got it.
and hopefully we will pick it all over town. And you won't see any. That's what we're requesting.
And so that you're gathering it all at Bay Park, is that?
At Bay Park, I think we did it last year also.
Okay.
It's a competition, and people would bring their bags and we would weigh them. And the person that brought the most would get some extraordinary prize, which I can't remember what it was. But, we're gonna be doing that again this year.
Is there,
The request is for use of the park and for the waiver of fee.
okay. Yeah, you sound like, how do we keep the garlic mustard from spreading?
It'll all be bagged.
All bagged.
It'll all bagged and weighed, and then we have to figure out.
How to dispose of it.
But the town is not being helpful at all in terms of providing a place or anything, but we will figure it out.
We can't bring it to the transfer station?
You know, they don't seem to be they don't want it mixed in with everything else. it goes to a landfill,
Yeah.
and I don't know if they're worried that it's.
There, yeah, so the concern is that, I mean, ultimately, you have to sort of
Burn.
cover it and bake it in the sun for a certain amount of time for it to be completely, toasted,
I
before
think
you could,
different communities do different things. but
Right.
Basically, we can just make a pile of it in an area that has a lot of it, so it's not gonna it's not gonna contribute to like any more, and it just it composts.
Yeah.
I've tried to get the electric company to drill holes that they use for the poles. We can just dump them in there and compost them in the holes, but that's, anyway, I'm not getting, that's me. Sorry, I'm not getting anywhere, but we will solve that problem.
sounds like you might need a visit to the fire department for
Yeah.
some,
Burn.
burn permits.
It's not something you want to burn because it's all green, it's just,
Yeah.
it just needs to be composted somewhere. And most of this is gonna be hopefully cooled before it goes to seed, so it's not gonna be. It's only gonna have seed that may come up with the dirt when they pull it out.
Right.
So it's not a major issue, but we will deal with that.
For just as a public service announcement, what is
No,
the good window for pulling garlic mustard? Is it out now?
You can start right now. And it's best to do it before it goes to seed. For sure. But I've been putting out signs right now, you've probably seen them around town.
Amy and I worked on this beautiful blue one that you see out and about.
Oh, that, say something,
Yeah,
just pull it, get rid of it.
pull it, and get rid of it. Yeah.
Something, do something. All right,
I will make a motion that we accept the LCT utilizing Fay Park on the 22nd, the day prior to the Girl Scouts meeting it, and that we also waive any sort of fees associated with utilization of Fay Park.
I'll second that.
yeah, it's the roll call, Scott,
Yes.
Aaron,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
and I'm also yes.
Okay.
Good luck and good hunting.
Yeah.
It's the drive of the shaker.
Sure, you can. Matt, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
We can, hello.
Hi.
So will you introduce yourself and, you can feel free to talk about the, proposal from the Shade Tree Committee?
Great. So Matt Gale with the Littleton Shade Tree Committee. We have been refunded as of the last about 3 fiscal years. So we've been sort of back in action. Good to see Rick here remotely, who's been really passing the torch and helping us keep everything moving in the right direction. The first thing we tackled was the planting on the common. The emerald ash borer, if you hadn't heard or noticed, took down a lot of our town's ash trees, which were a lot were on the common. So we had our original funding and have mostly gotten that finished and completed. It was a project with the Shade Tree. Basically, we have some volunteers on the committee who have some knowledge and interest in shade trees, public trees, species, varieties, locations. Rick has been a part of it. Kim Ahern, landscape architect. Myself, I'm a certified arborist. We have a good group, so we make recommendations, and that's what we did. We developed a plan for the common, presented that, and worked with Highway Department to get it planted. So the original way that we had started was just assuming that since we're doing stuff, as a town entity for the town, it was just pretty easy to get things done. But we've since discovered that there's a lot of different parts to the town with different funding sources. And Alicia was nice enough to meet with us and have a conversation about, parkland being different from the town common and select board land, or however it's all broken down. But essentially, Highway Department had approval to do watering and maintenance on the trees and had done the planting, which helps us because, we get about $5,000 a year. Last fiscal, it was down to 3,500. This year, back to 5,000. So it doesn't get too many trees. If we were to subcontract it out, the price pretty much, doubles and triples pretty quickly. So it's been great to work with Highway Department for the labor and getting the trees in. But now that we were looking at other places in town and had heard that, Fay Park had an original planting plan and sort of has had some tree loss over the years and looking to bring some trees back into this location, we came up with a planting plan and then some costs on trees. You see here, Kim Ahern had gotten some quotes from various places in some various different size classes. Steve Witten, our town tree warden, who's on the committee, prefers the larger size classes. So the first summary we're looking at here is for 2.5 inch trees, but that's on the smaller end. Availability was a little bit less on some of the other size classes, so it would jump up to the sort of 3-inch trees in some locations. So roughly, 360, 380 you're seeing on some of these tree prices here. And then we would want to use our funding to pay for the water bill. So our first stop is just to come to you to sort of present the plan, to talk about the species, the locations, the fact that we do have funding. We want to pay for long-term care and maintenance of these trees. Our next stop would then be to go to finance or select board, whoever kind of controls our money, to figure out how we can get it spread out over fiscal years. So, fiscal year obviously ends June 30th. We don't want the water to turn off July 1st. So we'd have to sort of figure out a way to make sure that we're working with the water department in the town to provide long-term funding for the care and maintenance of the trees. So just so that that's the vision. We don't want to plant trees and walk away. We don't want to saddle Parks Department or Highway Department, with additional work that they don't have the time or the labor or the funding for. So we're not looking to spend all the money just on trees. We want to do a thorough job of providing long-term care, including mulching, tree staking, watering bags that can make the watering easier over time. So all those would be included. So we had a larger plan, maybe about 10 trees or so. Kind of just went out and walked the site, kind of scaled that back also to present these 7 trees here today. And these can also be phased in over time. The planting we did on the common was close to 20 trees, I think. And we did that over 3 planting seasons. So this doesn't have to be an all at once thing either. We can sort of ease into this with a few trees based on the feedback that you have today. But quickly here, so Kim, I think, had found or had an original plan or something. Essentially, the idea when they had a planting in Fay Park was that there were larger trees towards the outside, and some of the smaller flowering trees were towards the inside. So that was what we were looking to mimic here. So trees 1 through 4, kind of along the road there, would be larger shade trees. And yes, we've been to the site, understand that it's very wet. We have, trees that are more adapted to those conditions. Swamp white oak recommended, Kentucky coffee tree, sycamore. So these are trees that do well on these sort of marginal planting sites. We did have some red maples included over by the fire station, but learned that was one of your major access points, so have taken them off. The benefit of those is that they're readily available. The detracting portion of that is that they typically are overplanted. So we're trying to plant, not just what's going to survive now, but sort of long-term, climate adjustment issues. These trees are all sort of tried and true and recommended good tolerant trees. The yellow magnolia up by the gazebo is an existing tree that Kim had said is on the decline. It's on the way out. Looks like it needs to be replaced. So that was the idea there, to just replace the dying tree with a new one. And then so the 5 and 6 would be flowering trees, a little bit closer into the park there. And this is all sort of rough estimates, not exactly the scale. So, it would still be a conversation on going out, putting a stake in the ground, walking out the spacing, whatever people kind of feel like. But if you remember that sort of gap right there, it's a pretty big open area. It could handle several large shade trees without any problem. And then Carolina silver bell, sort of northeastern-ish native flowers, pollination, all those sort of good things, and does a little bit better in these sites. So that's the tree talk in a nutshell. So I think I will be quiet now and let you ask questions. I'm happy to answer tree-related and funding-related questions.
So how does this fit in with our overall plans for Fay Park?
That's a great question, Kate. So the locations where we have them right now aren't anything that would necessarily interfere with thoughts and plans that we have for the future. 7 is the location where we've already approved the memorial boulder to go. So that just would be replacing the tree that's there that is not doing so well with a new tree that will hopefully flourish. And the other trees will be all up front towards Foster Street. So we do need to get additional shade coverage in the park, and that's a great way to be able to do that.
Nice, thank you.
Are 1, 2, 3, and 4 set back a little bit more than what they look like in the picture?
I question road maintenance or.
Yeah,
hanging over the
because
street.
I mean, Colburn Lane's a classic example of the trees that are out there. They look great, but they're built too close to everything, and now they are a problem with the sidewalks and the roads, as well as the fire trucks going down the road.
So Stephen Witten, who is our highway superintendent, he is also the arborist in town. He is part of the shade tree committee, so that is something we will make sure that that's done appropriately.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I had mentioned to Alicia when I first saw this site, Matt, was that are these trees planted in a position where they're spaced out far enough for a full canopy at full growth, or are they going to be bunched? Are they going to be touching when they're actually like full growth trees?
Yeah, full canopy, full growth. So, we didn't take any measurements there, just sort of walk the site. I don't have Google Earth Ruler up. That's, I don't know, probably 1,000 feet along that stretch. I'm not sure, but there's plenty of room. I would say these, artificial dots right here are probably about 50 feet apart from each other, something like that. But again, we can walk out the final distances once we get some sort of a green light or thumbs up. We didn't put a lot into this in terms of measurements in case it wasn't going to move forward.
And yeah, the species are, I don't, so I don't have the knowledge of the species, but they're all appropriate for the area.
Yep, absolutely. So the one other thing we were able to sort of get done working with Amy Green with conservation, she had gotten some funding in, and if you haven't seen it yet, go to the Shade Tree Committee website. We have Littleton tree guidelines now. So we have like a public facing document that has trees listed on there. Essentially, we're promoting native trees over non-natives, understanding that sometimes there are, there is a place based on soil compaction, drought, salt, all those things that may affect it for non-native trees that do well in those conditions. But overall, the town is promoting more native plantings for the benefits that they provide. So that's reflected here as well. And if you want any more information, you can just hop on our website and get the shade tree guidelines too.
Nice. And I take it the flowering trees are support each other for the pollination. They're compatible.
Yep, they're good little trees.
They're well behaved.
Yeah.
But I mean, I know certain trees need other trees to actually be able to pollinate, each other.
Right. I mean, we're not looking to produce fruit. More so when you're trying to actually, pollinate for fruit, the flowers will be there regardless. But
Okay.
All right, so what's up?
So these are not the same size that are given out to the town, like the residents, is it? Are we looking at a larger size than those?
yeah, so trees are measured by what's called caliper. So that's a couple inches off the ground. When they come out of the nursery, large full grown trees, you might hear the term DBH, or diameter at breast height, which is 4.5 feet off the ground. So in forestry, my background, I'm a forester. You're cruising timber and measuring, saw logs and all that sort of stuff. The industry standard is off, 4.5 feet off the ground. But since nursery trees don't have that, they're measured in what's called caliper. So the trees that you've seen for water department giveaway, I think those are about 5-gallon container trees. So they're probably less than an inch caliper off, a couple inches off the ground. 2 and 2.5 trees are what you would think of typically as ball and burlap. You have that sort of image in your head. A tree comes down as a big root ball and it's wrapped up. That's sort of the starting size. But if you've seen I think Shade Tree paid for the tree that went in at beach.
Long Lake, yeah.
Again, that was highway department. When you look at that tree, that's a pretty sizable tree. And actually, I think the other one that went in is right in front of your new headquarters there, the old library, where a tree was run over and put back in. So those are those 3.5 inch trees. And I'd say a few of them on the common were the 3.5. We had, again, availability coming from the nurseries. You're subject to what they can get. Some of those were a little bit smaller. So the smaller trees that you see on the common are probably those 2.5 inch trees. Just to give you a sense of, if it really feels like a tree yet. And with highway department able to do the planting, we can do the larger size and kind of give you a bit more of that instant effect. There'll be enough shade that, maybe one person can sit under it during the summer when we get them in the ground.
Is there an action from this? What's our?
So you would have to make a motion and vote to accept the proposed plan. So that they can start the process of purchasing plants and the materials needed to be able to get them placed as soon as they have them, I suppose.
I'll make a motion to accept the plan from the Shade Tree Committee proposal.
I'll second that.
A motion and a second. Roll call. Scott?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
And I will say yes. Trees.
Okay.
Trees.
Awesome. Thank you, Matthew. Appreciate you coming in and speaking to us tonight.
Thanks, everybody. And we don't necessarily have the timeline yet. So like I said, I'll work with this on the funding, just to make sure we can get that all squared away. And again, Steve has been very generous with the time of the department, but they'll kind of get it in as they can. Typically, planting season is April through about the end of June. So that's the window for spring planting currently.
As long as you guys don't do one on third Thursday, we should be good.
We will communicate thoroughly throughout this process. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Take care.
All right. I guess we keep going down. We did, what's up?
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, we skipped over minutes.
You want to go back to it?
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Rick.
Thanks,
Thank
Rick.
you. Thank you. Have a good night.
Yeah, we can go back to minutes, I guess. Not have any concerns with the minutes, anybody?
Looks good. What I thought, so.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to accept the minutes from our Tuesday, March 14th Park and Rec meeting.
I'll leave a second.
Any seconds? Share with Aaron's.
Yes.
Yes.
And Kate,
Yes.
and I will also yes. All right. I guess we're on to the LCF donation, and I'm going to recuse myself from that.
You should indeed. All right. So the Littleton Children's Fund was established in 1990 with the ultimate plan to be able to develop a playground within the town of Littleton. So they originally created the very first Castle in the Trees, and recently have done the community build in 2016 to replace the old structure with a new structure. So after 26 years of operation, they have decided to dissolve the 501c3. So with that, they would like to donate the remaining revenue left in the account to Parks and Recreation so that we may continue their work with being able to develop, support, maintain playgrounds in Littleton. So they are donating a much larger sum than I thought of $23,558.70. And so I will be working with our finance director. She will create a new fund for us to put this in so that these funds will be put aside and used just for playground needs specifically.
So they're earmarked or whatever.
They will be specifically because the mission statement of Littleton Children's Fund was for playgrounds first. Yeah.
What in our terminology dictates a playground? Is it like,
Like, that's a really interesting question, Aaron.
Well, I'm an interesting person.
Let me pull out Webster's dictionary. No, I don't think that we have a specific definition, but I
I'm just
mean,
curious as to what,
a play structure.
like what
you
we
know.
have that, well, that's what I'm trying to figure out is
Right,
what is eligible under this fund from existing things that we have outside of Castle of the Trees.
right. I mean, I would interpret it, and you can give your feedback on this as well, because Saul was the president of the Littleton Children's Fund. That it would be the actual like play structure, something that's referred to as a playground. So we have Castle in the Trees at 300 King. Aiden's playground is also at Castle in the Trees. The beach.
Also
What's that?
funded with this group.
Yes, so I apologize for not mentioning that. Yeah, so Aiden's playground was also part of this as well. And the playground that's down at the beach, those are the ones that are under the purview of the Park Commission. What's that? And, oh yeah, I always forget the little guy there, sorry. So yes, also at Haven Park. Or if there's any structures or anything that we want to be able to add, we can do that as well. Yep. Questions, comments, concerns?
So we need to make a motion that we would like to graciously accept the. We're just, $23,558.70.
You got it. Yep.
Littleton's Children Fund.
Mhm.
I would like to make that motion.
Okay, all right, so will you do a roll call because Saul cannot?
Yes, once I get a second.
Yes.
Scott second.
Yeah, I seconded it. Yes.
All right, so we'll do a roll call. Kate?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Aaron? Yes.
Okay, thank you for that amazing donation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Zach, thanks for the meeting.
The town here contributed it, so. The people of the town.
All right, so we'll give you an update on tennis court. Kate had mentioned that Tim and I met with her and Jen Gold, who is on the school committee, to talk about this project. They also talked about it last night at the select board meeting. And this is something that they do want to support and move forward with. So what we're talking about this evening is just specifically the area that says new tennis courts. So we're not talking about the pickleball courts, we're not talking about the road, any of those components, but specifically just the tennis courts. And, you know, I guess if Highway's doing some of the work to help with the islands and the parking lot, that would be included as well. But so ultimately, we tried to go through the process of creating a design for Cooper Farm, which was not supported, so that got shut down. So the alternate was to be able to work with the school department to create these a new set of tennis courts on top of, or ultimately we had talked about refurbishing one set and adding a new one. But ultimately, the design that we've looked at with the athletic director from the school and the business manager from the school, Steve Mark and Mike Lynn, that this is the supported design for the implementation of putting in these new courts. So we're currently, Tim and I met with Bill and Sue from Places. They were the ones that did the original plan at Cooper Farm to see if they could draft a new design for this location and be able to come up with an estimated cost for that project. So I already said the components that were before that. So essentially what we're looking for tonight would be for the Park Commission to support this collaboration between the Littleton Public School and PRCE in moving forward to complete this redesign, renovation, whatever you want to call this, of the tennis courts at the high school. One of the bigger reasons why this is so important to try to get this done as quickly as we possibly can is that it is a MIA regulation for high school tennis that they have to have 4 courts. If we get rid of the 2 courts that are at Town Hall to put up the new senior center, then we will only be left with 2, I will call it 2 viable courts, because there are 2 at Webster, what is that, Webster Village, that are, in my opinion, not usable. So we would need to be able to get courts in there to support the high school tennis so that they can have a tennis team next year.
What season is done?
Spring. So there would be some fall stuff, but that could, to the point, it could be accommodated at Webster. Knowing that this, you know, if we move forward with this would be a construction site. So, I mean, just a couple things to point out. This is something that, you know, we had the backing of all of the boards when we were talking about doing this Cooper property.
Right.
You know, Alicia and I, this is kind of originally the proposal was we do somewhere up at the high school, and, you know, we're kind of back to square one, which is, this is the proper way to do it. When you look at, you know, facilities that have tennis courts, this is how they're properly laid out. They're oriented, you know, the way that they should be for particular type of play that we're utilizing them for. The one thing that's not represented on this is because we won't be entertaining the pickleball option at this time. Most likely the 2 courts that are furthest away from the high school will be the ones that will be painted with the pickleball lines. So we're just same thing that we talked about during the Cooper project. It's a 1-for-1 replacement. So those 2 tennis courts that are up at the Town Hall currently will become those 2 tennis courts that are close to King Street in the drawing here. You know, just kind of some other things to point out that you really can't kind of see on here that well is you would have a walkway that would come from Indian Hill out to there. The walkway would be something that we would, you know, make part of this project. And then from the tennis courts out to the parking lot, there would be roughly 16 feet of a walkway pad area where we can put some bleachers. Also a curb cut for a handicap spots to be replaced. Right up against that grass there are 5 handicap spaces that are closest to the LELWD pump house. So we would just need to reorient them in a way that they were then closest to the access point, which would be the middle of the 4 tennis courts. The other thing that we would install is some sort of precast concrete stairs or a ramp on the backside with a man gate for easy access from the old Indian Hill property, our new property, for, you know, moving equipment, things like that. You know, ideally, if we could get everybody's support, which, you know, just wanted to repeat it again, we had for the Cooper property. So we should move forward with, especially with the fact that we are, you know, in a position where we're going to be bonding money and everything else with Indian Hill. This is a good opportunity to, you know, put this all together, get this done, make sure that we have a viable replacement for the courts that are being taken out of town hall. Just like we promised all the residents that we would do. It also gives the tennis team what they need. And ideally, you know, getting this to town meeting in the spring is the best thing, because just so everybody knows, a lot of this is temperature dependent. So ideally, if we could get the actual tennis courts down, the base coats in, everything that needs to be done at summertime temperatures, then we could do things like fencing and all of that other work that, you know, isn't so temperature dependent over the course of the winter, or, you know, once the snow melts. And then landscaping and things like that obviously would be, you know, could even be done, you know, during the spring while the season's going. But the main part of the project would be attainable. Right now, if we were to hold off and go to this in the fall, we don't have that option. So.
And you're more at risk with the varied temperatures that you will have in the fall if we try to put those elements in. And then obviously, if we wait until spring, you know, we've had a pretty pleasant spring thus far, but typically we usually have rain and mud and varying temperatures as well. You're still delaying the ability for especially the high school team to be able to have somewhere to play. So now is really the time that we need to do it. It's unfortunate that it's a really quick turnaround. You know, we tried to go one way and it didn't work out. It happens. So this is the other plan that, you know, we're gonna work with the schools and move forward to complete.
You know, and when we do get the number back, the number right now is sitting somewhere, we'll call it a little north of $800,000. Because it was just, you know, very quickly put together. So they're working on sharpening that down right now. But one of the things, you know, that we did talk about in doing so was, you know, setting this up for future success as well. So, you know, there's a line item in there for running the conduit and putting the drops in if we ever do want to light it, you know, because that would be some.
My next question, were lights anywhere in this?
So not
Not
on
in
this
this plan.
particular setup, but the actual foundation for it to be done, the infrastructure will be there.
Okay.
Which, you know, down the road will save us money because we're not digging up sidewalks and stuff that is in that number, which bumps it a little bit because the, you know, the cost of conduit and all that kind of stuff, but down the road, it will be something that we could look into and very easily done.
I'm gonna do a design, so I don't want to get too off topic, but if this is gonna be shared with the schools, how are we gonna make sure that the schools have the priority when they need to?
They do know. It's so the way it's the same thing as the grass fields. The hierarchy is it's school department, park and rec, youth sports with more than 80% kids in Littleton, youth sports with under 80%. So there's a
Yeah,
whole
there's
that's a policy that you all
residents
set.
have the thing.
Correct.
Okay.
So it's the same hierarchy
Okay.
that we currently have. It's the same thing when the high school team uses town courts. You know, we don't run after school programming and such.
Oh, yeah, I was just more concerned about like a resident just wanting to utilize the courts and
Yes.
get bumped off.
All courts anywhere in town, indoor or outdoor, and alumni field follow the same hierarchy of use.
So it's not a.
I mean,
it's gonna be surprised
If
by
there
it.
was somebody from the public that wants to go down and play and it's empty, they can play. That's fine.
The only thing that I do think we would have to look at from a policy standpoint is probably just setting the precedent that access during the school day needs to be accessed from the Indian Hill side.
Yeah.
Not from the school park side. I think that would be something in the future that we look at. I don't know if it's something that we want to say, hey, we're gonna lock the gate. All stuff that we can figure out down the road, but
Right.
those are the kind of things that we should think about being on the shared property.
Right, yeah.
Once the courts are up and running, I may have mentioned this before, but maintenance as it moves forward, year 2, 3 down the road, is that a school thing? Is it a correct thing? Is it a combination of both? How's that?
That's something that we're gonna have to explore.
Just curious, yeah.
No, that's a great question. The reality is, just as the basketball courts at 300 King, you know, these things are supposed to be resurfaced every 5 years to make sure they can last their 20 years of
Right.
life.
Yeah.
So yes, that is something that we will have to look at.
I would recommend that we make sure that the town is aware of that too when it goes to vote, so that it's not a surprise in 5 years if we're saying that these need to be
Right.
repaved or whatnot, so everyone's aware.
So more than likely, Kate, we would go through the process of doing a capital fund request.
Okay.
But we did ask for that the last 2 years for the basketball court, and that's been denied. So, you know, maybe we do have to think about how we can save money and be able to ensure that we can have that done in 5 years. So that's a game plan that we'll have to sit down with the school department and figure out.
Listen, you get a lot of self-made leagues and some of these, you know, things, see the basketball, right,
Yeah.
maybe a small fee there and let them know that that's where it's going towards, right? Maybe start something.
Right. So if you do want to reserve the courts, there's usually typically a fee for that. But any organizations, and this is a policy of this board, any organizations that are charging to use those facilities, then we would charge them a fee to use those facilities, our facilities. Yep, so that they're giving back to the maintenance,
Yeah,
right,
right.
of those specific courts. I think sometimes that people get confused about that and think that we're doing other things with those funds,
Right.
but any funds that come in from reservations, whether it be the fields or the courts, that would go back into maintenance.
For
Questions,
some
comments?
reason, I thought the orientation was north-south, not east-west. It's
So it is.
Yeah, it is,
It's a
you're
great
right.
point. So
Yeah.
in this particular site, that doesn't matter so much because of the way the sun traverses here. And the
Yeah.
fact that that is so far down behind the building, you don't get the sun in your eyes kind of effect that you're really worrying from. You have a lot of shade on the, just for purpose, I'll just say the left-hand side of that right now.
Yep.
So the orientation here is not the same as if it was up on top of the hill where we would have that issue. And most importantly, when you really look at that, having this setup is optimal. So this is,
Best
the
use
couple
of space.
degrees that were off.
Yep.
This is really the way to go.
Yep.
And you only have to get fencing around all of them, rather than like right now, they have
2 and 2.
fencing
Right.
2 and 2, so then we would have been like 4 and 4,
So this will also save a bunch of money
Yeah.
on the wind screening, all of that kind of stuff, which the wind screening, we don't have that right now. That will also provide, protection from the couple days that the sun is gonna be just in the couple,
Yeah.
spot that. But for the most part, when you look at this, it's not gonna be an issue for that.
And then any reason we're only lining through the courts for pickleball and not all four?
So we have now.
it's 1 for 1.
Especially for like, when you are playing in matches, it can be a little distracting. I think we're actually gonna go to like a navy blue or something else rather than the red lines we have currently. Just to be a little less distracting, something that blends a little better. Possibly yellow, we're gonna talk to whomever about that. We've looked at all sorts of different options, but. For the purpose of play, especially, in elimination matches and stuff like that, it does make sense. And at this point, we have said from start to finish, we're replacing what we have. So, to say like, hey, now we're gonna paint all the courts, that's not really what we've talked about the whole time. And, we can move these courts if we, get the pickleball court, Alicia and I have also been discussing some other opportunities that could be very exciting. Now that we have Indian Hill, do we, make a couple changes up at 300 King Street, moving some stuff down to Indian Hill and changing the way that things are painted? Because basically, to Kate's point, these don't get repaved ever, right? They should last the life of the thing. It's painting. So they basically just squeegee on whatever color you want and then draw whatever lines you want. So, we have the opportunity to do some of that kind of fun stuff and think outside the box and come up with some other stuff. It's always paying attention at the super fun meeting. Yeah, if they were up at like town hall, we would definitely have a problem with the orientation, but not here.
Will you support us or not? The big question.
Yeah, and so the expectation is that you'll have a quote
We're trying to get it like,
for town meeting to include
ASAP.
with and there was also some question of whether or not that fell in the.
CPC bucket or,
No, what was.
Oh,
in the
correct.
Posting of the.
yes,
Yeah,
yeah. So I'm not sure how we will insert that into the town meeting warrant.
Right.
However, the select board did say last night that they were supportive of getting this done. Or making our best effort to try to get it into
Right.
this warrant.
Right, and then, CPC would have to be
I have a feeling it's probably, too late for any of that. So if we needed to come back in fall to be able to ask for funds, we could do it then.
So do we need to make a motion to
Yes, please.
accept the tennis court design, this new plan?
support the design of
Yeah.
tennis courts at the high school.
I essentially support this collaborative project between the public school and PRCE to renovate these courts.
Okay, so I'll make the motion to have PRCE support this collaborative project between Littleton Public Schools and Parks and Rec Committee.
I'll second that.
And motion in a second. Start with Kate.
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Aaron.
Yes.
And I'm also yes.
Did I not put that guy in there?
Which one?
I didn't. Discussion on pickleball lines at 300 feet. So I think we actually had voted on this a long time ago, and then we kind of put the kibosh on it, but not knowing the time frame of when this will be completed. And also not knowing the time frame of when the town courts will be demolished, which we're assuming is going to be in July or August. We then need a place to be able to put pickleball lines because we have nowhere to play at the moment. We would go back to our backup plan of putting the lines at the basketball court at 300 King.
The standalone court.
So just
Right,
one.
the one.
Close to
You can you can get 2 pickleball courts on 3. Oh, yeah.
Gaz and I measured it out last year.
Okay,
We can get 3 on there. There was a little question if, one of the backboards was gonna get a little bit in the way depending on how high you hit it. So we could get 2. We can fit 3. 2 would probably be a little more optimum just to pull them in, but
yeah,
we could get 3 in there in order to facilitate. We'd be 1 short, but it would still get us. I think last year Kaz got the quote for this. It was just under $1,600.
Yeah.
I would have to imagine that just in everything else that we've seen, it's probably going to be about 20% higher. And then the other piece to this is we could get some temporary fencing, typically used for outfield fencing on like the softball field that is removable. Which would be much more advisable than T-post and blue fence like we had during COVID. Because T-posts just aren't a safety conscious thing. So, you know, we could pick that up for between $1,500 and $2,000, depending on how many linear feet we actually need, how far we want to set it back off the court. So those are just things to look at. We could just do the lines. We really should put some sort of fencing up there, especially with that drainage swale. Last thing we need is somebody running over and falling down backwards down that as well. So that would be, if we did this, that would be the full package, is we would have to look at some sort of fencing, at least on one side of that.
And it's a great timing for it too, right? Because if, again, as we mentioned before, you know, we paint those on there now and then they get resurfaced, you know, let's say next summer, then you can just paint right over top of it. And then hopefully we'll have all those new ports to be able to switch over to. So it's really only a temporary solution.
And Alicia and I had discussed, you know, when we do repaint them, you know, doing some more fun elements like
Yeah.
what we have out at 300 King, doing some hopscotch, doing some like little shuffleboard, like other elements that we could put, since it's a playground, on that standalone court, you know, in the future when we do that. So there's some other opportunities. We found some really cool stuff.
Yeah.
To possibly move forward with.
Useful for park games or
Yeah.
playground.
Foursquare, that kind of stuff.
The playground activity camp.
Yeah.
All right. Do you want a motion on this too?
Yes, please.
Make a motion that we paint the tennis courts with the lines for pickleball, excuse me, not the tennis courts, basketball courts. The lower one, the one closest to the parking lot. And then we also add fencing and safety precautions as necessary.
I'll second.
Aaron,
Yep.
Scott,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
and I'm yes.
Excellent. Thank you much. All right, Mr. Mahowski. Special events updates.
All right, so this weekend we had our second annual bunny breakfast, and it was absolutely spectacular. Thank you to EHS, Liz and her team, all of the seniors who were involved in making the stuffing of the 8,000 eggs. Everybody seemed like they had a really good time. It was just, it's really nice to see kind of the community work together, the departments work so well together. Thank you so much to Charlie and everyone who helped out with the senior diner. Charlie was flipping pancakes, making them from scratch. Doty's Diner was the provider of the food, sausage, bacon, all that kind of stuff. Overall, you know, another resounding, just awesome day from everybody. The bunny was wildly successful. He actually remembered one of our children from last year and gave him a personalized note, which really kind of made that person's day. Really, really nice touch. Awesome job. Then we did our egg hunt out back. You know, thank you to Park Commissioner Aaron and, you know, his family for coming out and helping as well. But, you know, we got all the eggs out there. Didn't get the memo, but good morning means go apparently now. So we didn't really get to do any of our spiel. But the video that Aaron gave us, it was really, really awesome. For those of you who missed it, please heed my warning again next year. It begins at 11. It's over at 11:02. So it is, it's definitely, you know, we've grown this event the first year that we had it. Since Elizabeth and I were working together. We had about 500 people, and we've steadily been increasing that. I would say that we probably had every bit of 1,000 kids and parents lined up along the baseline, ready to take the Easter Bunny out. So it was an absolutely awesome event. Thank you to EHS again. Thank you to Liz. Thank you to all of the seniors. You can see a picture of them all putting the eggs together. Next event is going to be Touch Truck, May 13th. That event is currently, I'm having a little bit of trouble with that. Unfortunately, due to losing the town administrator, who was our point of contact with 550 King Street, I still haven't gotten an answer. That's the ideal place that we've always hoped to do this event, because that has also grown in immense size. Last year, we had tremendous parking issues doing it down at LAWD. We also have the same issues at Town Hall because we've outgrown that parking lot, especially since the library's been built and took away a large portion of our usable space down there. So currently, I don't know if you guys have any ties or can reach out to anybody. Selectman DeCoste was helping. Interim town administrator Ryan had reached out to him as well to see if there was any way that we could get that going. But that is one of the big pieces to this that I'm trying to really pull together. But if you know anybody who has any really cool trucks, the invite is out. Please let them know. It's such a wonderful day. We do have a food truck lined up to come, so there'll be food for the families. If you haven't been in Touch Truck, it's amazing. So come check that out. Third Thursday, we'll be back May, June, July, and August. So just get the word out. If you guys, are looking to, if anyone out there is looking to be a vendor, please get on our MyRec page, look up under special events, third Thursday. It's a very simple one-page sheet to fill out. All of the fees associated with Third Thursday are there. If you are a special interest group and you qualify for the discount, there are different discounts and codes. Please call myself or call Kelsey in our office and we'll be able to help walk you through that. And then moving forward, just so everybody is kind of aware, we are going to have, we are in the process of framing out our first annual Littleton Day. We are going to frame this after some of the other park and recs. Belmont does a wonderful one. Norwood does a huge day. We're not going to be anywhere near that. If you've seen Belmont Day, that's kind of what we're shooting for. But we do have an amusement company who is going to bring in all of the rides, all the amusements at no cost to us and donate back a percentage of the ticket sales. We're going to start looking at getting in vendors, really good live music, and really kind of building this day up. This is going to take place the second to the last weekend in August. It'll kind of be like an end of summer kickoff. It'll be the last weekend before we go back into fall sports season. So hopefully most of the families will still be around and able to do stuff because sports will not be happening yet. We're really looking this to be like the signature community event. So all of the youth sports organizations to get involved, all of the class L's to get involved, really pull in some good sponsorships from all around, from different town businesses. We'll have vendor booths as well as concessions and things like that. So this is something that we are going to be putting out a committee. So hopefully, eventually one of you will sit on that committee as well in order to help this. We're going to invite, hopefully a member from each of the other groups to be part of that. The main part, all of the attractions will be on Wickham Field. We will be putting everything out there and kind of anchoring everything around there. So that is our plan for that right now. And then almost a month to the day, we'll be doing our Oktoberfest again. So
that. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So we'll be doing that September 30th. If you want to pencil that in your calendars, will be our Oktoberfest this year. So lots of fun things coming down the line in special events. If you guys have any ideas or anything that you want to change or anything you want to do, I am seeing that we don't have our bookend on here. So the kickoff to summer party is Friday, June 23rd. And just double check that that's June 23rd. But that is going to be now 2 days before school actually lets out on that Tuesday. But we will have live music, food truck. Let's make sure I got that right. Yeah, Friday, June 23rd. So we will have food trucks, live music, movie on the beach, DJ Mike for the kids doing all sorts of games and contests. We will have a one-day liquor license pulled. So the sailing tent, we will have a little mini kind of beer garden thing going on. So it should be a really fun family event. That's just so we'll have kind of bookends for the beginning and the end of the summer now. All right.
And the Littleton Day is sort of taking the place of the last third Thursday. So there won't be a third Thursday in August. It will be the Littleton Day, right?
I think that's kind of our thought.
Yeah.
What's that song?
Originally, there was the common market, the market It
was last
Oh.
did see that.
When is she doing those though?
I don't know. I haven't heard anything about it until I saw a little bit about that.
It was in the packet for last night.
Yeah.
Just double check.
For some reason, I think the June 23rd date does pop out to me. So,
Well,
I
that's
don't know. I know,
something completely different than.
yeah,
Yeah, I just, yeah. There were other things going on too.
That's also not a family centric event. Really.
I think I think she was kind of having it be similar to like a third Thursday, but her business would be running it and trying to get other local businesses there as well.
Yeah, I think they're, yeah, one or both of them, they're also bringing in some other
A food truck
Boston,
and
like, well, some
so,
Boston market businesses.
oh, really?
Um. But she did specifically mention that they were thinking outside of the third Thursday
Yeah,
weeks.
yeah.
But
Which event are you speaking about?
The
I can't remember the word.
is it Black Market? Something,
No.
something market. It's last year they had started it. It was a Saturday morning last year.
yeah,
And I'm trying to find it, Kate.
The new shop at on the Common,
Oh, okay.
and they're bringing in a bunch of other vendors. They'll close down that street between Gregor Road and King Street,
Meeting House Road.
Meeting House Road, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Meeting
Okay.
House Market, I think is,
what
Meetings,
it's
is that
called.
what it was?
yeah.
I'm not seeing it on Google.
Got it. So the one between her shop and the Common, is that what you said?
Yeah, I want to say it's Saturday because the Country Gardeners are doing, because they have, both of them are going on at the same
Same
time.
day, yeah,
Right.
So I don't think it's 24th, I think.
okay.
So this would be the, so this is Friday, right? So it's just a good busy weekend to stay in town.
On weekends.
What's going on?
Any other
Good.
special fun stuff you got?
No, that's what we got for right now. Like I said, if anybody's got any questions, just
Whitcomb is Shaker.
Wickham is the Russell.
Russell.
Okay,
The back corner on the walkway up to the library.
gotcha. Okay,
All right, so I got a couple of things to chat about, so I will try to keep these relatively quick and answer your questions the best of my ability. Okay, so finances, yay, we're doing great. I mean, I can go into stuff in more detail, but you know, we're still anywhere between 15 to 30% increase from the previous year, month to month. So yeah, we're doing really awesome. It's been amazing to see how much our programs are desired continually. So it's very exciting to watch that. So our staff is amazing. They put on fantastic programs. So we're really excited for this summer and getting back into that world again.
So I think one of the things that's really important for everybody here to understand too is we're still sticking to our mission statement. This is strictly from increased usage, not from increase in fees.
Correct.
So like you guys saw, we kept the beach flat, camp rate, things like that. We did build in a little bit of adjustment because of payroll that went up because of $15 minimum wage, but with the exception of those little tweaks, this is sheer usage.
Yeah.
So, you know, we're still trying to keep everything as low and effective as we can, so.
We're hiring.
we're
So
hiring.
if anybody is looking for a summer job, we definitely probably will have plenty of spots, seeing as there's lots of people doing programming. We very desperately need a camp nurse. So if anyone knows anyone, please have them get in contact with us. I believe it's $25 an hour to start. Yeah, so, yeah, if you're interested, please reach out to our departments. Okay. Town hall update. So we mentioned it, but we didn't talk about it, because obviously that didn't happen at last month's meeting. But the select board has decided to not renew, Anthony Ansaldi's contract. And he is, no longer with the town of Littleton at this point in time. Ryan Ferrara has become the interim town administrator. They did that last night at the select board meeting until a new town administrator can be hired. In addition, again, if you watch the select board meeting, Patty Moore, our most recent finance director, has also turned in for resignation. This is the part of I will answer your questions to the best of my abilities, if you have any. Or you can make any statements that you.
It's gonna be recorded.
So, yeah, I will just put that out there. If you guys have any questions or let me know. I guess if the public has questions, ask the select board. I don't know. Yeah. All right, moving on from that happy note. So Indian Hill update. So as of March 31st, the town officially owns 36 and 32 King Street. So those buildings are the town's.
You mean 2023?
Yes, yes. Kate,
Oh my goodness, Kate, what was I thinking? Wow, just ignoring the last 2 years, you know, whatever. Thank you. Yes, as of this year, 2023. Wow. Town administration is working with LLB. They're an architect firm, the Littleton Public School and PRCE to create a design and a cost estimation so we can go to town meeting with a request for renovation funds. So unfortunately, we were at the state conference, so we couldn't meet with LLB in person. But we did have a pretty good conversation with them via Zoom. And Brian Valentine was able to come in the next day and actually visit the club as it is now to get some ideas of how we can kind of turn that basement into that sort of space. So it sounds like he had some really good ideas of what he wanted to put out there. And we've taken all of the staff out to the site so we could get their feedback and hear anything that they, you know, had concerns about or were interested in doing, ideas, all that stuff. So, you know, it's definitely been a group collaboration with that space, and it will continue to be. So I don't know if anybody has questions, comments, concerns.
I think one of the other pieces just internally that we've talked about that, you know, I would appreciate, I know John and Brent would also appreciate the support of you all, but you know, the talk has been, hey, we're going to move out of our space that we just got into and kind of go to Indian Hill. I think, you know, for the betterment of what we have, getting Indian Hill into that usable space and really getting everything right before we migrate kids over there, I think is super important. I think with the busing issues that we faced and questions that we have not figured out yet, you know, we have a beautiful space. I think that it would behoove us to utilize that space for as long as possible. I think, you know, having the support of you all when it does come to having that conversation, it would be nice to be able to utilize that space for particular programming like the teen center, everything else, to really get that other building dialed into what it needs to be used for. So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. I know everybody was like, hey, we're going to move into Indian Hill, we're going to do all this. I think there's definitely things, especially moving the teen center, which is bright and, you know, beautiful right now, into that basement, you know, until we really kind of figure out the situation with lights and, you know, how we really want to set that up for success. There really is advantages to utilizing the second and third floor of the old library, even after we move our offices out. So just keep that in the back of your minds, because, doesn't matter what, the building is always heated to 110 degrees over there. So whether somebody's in it, whether somebody's not, the energy is still getting used, so.
I mean, I would go as far as to say that given the demand for childcare, space, activities, whatever, we should encourage you guys to continue using that space until they tear the building down.
Yeah.
And there's not, there's another strong demand for it, sure, but I don't think there is. We get schools and your office out of there. And the senior center built, there's not, I don't think, another large group that wants
Right.
to use that space, so having. Even for a time, if we have 2 programs running and one can run over there, I think that would be everybody's benefit.
Yeah, because the signature benefits are, it is within walking distance of Castle, it's in walking distance. So, there are things that really do tie it together, and, I made the statement to the group we were speaking to the other day, realistically, until there's bulldozers in front of that building, there's no reason that we shouldn't be utilizing the
That's
space.
not great.
And we are potentially going to enter into a challenge with the busing situation. Because of the change of the schedules with the schools, they're now incorporating 4 new buses, but yet we still don't have enough bus drivers. So, right, it's a concern. So, I would say until we are certain that we could actually do transportation effectively, 100% we should stay or keep at least the club in the location that it is. That's for me.
Or we buy a school bus in Aram to drive our children every day.
I mean, you joke, but that is, we have had many in-house conversations of, is it time to buy a bus? And it may well be, honestly. I still can't get a 12-passenger van. They're just impossible to find.
Yeah.
So, that van was supposed to be replaced as of July 1 last year, and I've been waiting that whole time to get one just built. So. So you laugh, but I would not be surprised if that comes down the pipeline sooner than later. So.
But we can make that however we wanted that.
You are like stoked about this bus
Aaron, the
project.
reason I brought you up is there's art and trolls when they roll up in that bus, it's got the metal rocker drive. I think that's every single time.
All the fuzzy voice.
Oh, man. Okay, any questions about Indian Hill?
I mean, we don't, assuming it goes through funding goes through at springtime meeting.
Yeah.
Is there has LVP put out any kind of rough schedule, or is that not part of the plan?
Honestly, I think the whole focus right now is just being able to make sure we can get an actual design and a correct estimate. And we have time after that, we own the building and it's, a matter of, yes, creating schedule and trying to stick to that. Anything else? Okay. Open space and recreation plan update. We did have our last meeting, which was a great kickoff meeting to be able to talk about the schedule. Our next meeting is going to be on April 25th. The 2 of you are also on that committee. I will be in San Diego, so I'm not entirely sure how we're going to be able to run all of this. So I'm trying to work that out. Amy Green also is not available. So I may have to just run this from California. So if that's the case, then that is what we will do. It is what it is, but,
A good background.
huh?
Good background.
I'll just blur it. So just so you guys are aware, I'm trying to figure out how we're gonna do that, but, the meeting itself will take place at, 41 Shattuck Street in the conference room. and we'll be using the owl. Get to use the owl for the first time. So LCTV will come in and set all of that stuff up, so it's ready to go. And I believe Andrew Samarco also has experience with the owl, so very good. All right, I think I just have to add super cute that you turn it on and it goes hoot hoot. Moving on. Yes.
Is that's gonna be discussion of questions, is that?
So yes, that is part of the discussion. I think they're also going to go over what they have completed thus far. So right now they're looking at maps, GIS layers, things like that, to be able to compile all of the data that is needed to be able to put into the report. We still, with the statistically valid survey, have not been able to put out RFQ. So that is my top priority tomorrow, is to just make sure that gets finished and we can post it and go. So yes. All right. Okay, Kate, here we go, Kate.
All right, I'm ready. I'm ready.
You ready? So this is something that I wanted to bring up. There was a Facebook discussion last night. So we hadn't talked about this as a commission. I think we've talked about it individually as people, but I just wanted to communicate what was happening with the St. Anne's lease agreement. So we have done this lease agreement for years before I even, was the director here. So this year we are not entering into a lease agreement with St. Anne's. And so I will go through explaining how we got to that point. So every year we kind of start our communications earlier and earlier. So this year, both Tim and I started to reach out at the beginning of January. I specifically had 5 emails over the course of those months asking, where we were at, could we meet, yada, yada, all of those things. And I know, like I said, Tim had been in contact as well. So the St. Anne's Finance Council finally responded on March 21st. Which I will mention, the fields were set to open for spring sports that next week. So 2 weeks. So they wanted to discuss changes for that lease agreement at the time, and they only specifically wanted to talk to Chuck DeCoste, because I offered to meet with them and to go through things. So we reached out to Mr. DeCoste and asked him if he would be okay with communicating with them. He did, and ultimately the Finance Council wanted the town to seal coat their parking lot. In addition to the lawn maintenance fertilization that the church gets with that lease at no cost to them, that the highway staff does. So, and that it's a pretty hefty amount of, I do want to call it in-kind services that they get for that. So this adding in the seal coating would be on top of that.
To just clarify, I don't necessarily think that it was seal coating. I think it was that what we do in our parking lots where we do that like squiggly stuff, the crack sealing.
Is that not seal coating?
I don't know what it's called. I think it does have a different name, but
Okay.
that's just splitting hairs, but that was the
Still is
discussed.
significant
So,
Correct.
yes.
extortion.
Also, just to remind the board, this is after last year. They withheld the contract up until the last 2 weeks and leveraged us removing the old basketball court out of the back of the soccer field as it sits.
Right.
So there was a bunch of asphalt, all sorts of stuff. So this is 2 years in a row. What?
The asphalt thing. Was that something that went to the,
So, no, and this was the reason that the council wanted to speak to Selectman DeCoste in particular. Was last year he was the one who was able to execute that to happen.
oh,
So, yes. So where we came back to this is now, this is 2 years in a row where they've come up with a significant ask. With less than 2 weeks going into the season. This year, last year they allowed us to kind of get out there and let teams practice. This year, we were actually told in an email, do not go out on the fields. You're not allowed to be there.
Yep.
So, and you were all copied on the email. The email's public record. I'm happy to send it to anybody who actually wants to read through it. But in the second paragraph, we very clearly laid out that, we have a town budget. This is the fiscal year that we run through. This is when we properly look at projects. These are things that, in a contract that we could put in there in the future if they were, under proper negotiations and under the proper timeline to do things. But unfortunately, unlike last year, funds were not available to do a project of this stature in order to execute a contract.
And I put on there, on top of that, churches don't pay taxes. So, the fact that the request to use taxpayers' money to fix a facility that doesn't pay taxes didn't seem, choose the
Right.
words wisely here, right?
Correct.
The
Fair.
right thing,
Makes
fair
sense.
thing to do. So yeah, we told them that we were not going to do the lease agreement this year, and that if they would like to come to an agreement in the future, that we're very open to that. We have not received any communication back from that email, so I don't know where that stands. A couple other pieces that I just wanted to cover, because I think this had come up in some other conversations. So field use fees that are charged to the youth sports organizations. The purpose of those is to cover seasonal paint costs, field irrigation, and replacement of field equipment for all of the fields during the season. So in the past, we haven't been able to cover those costs. So a lot of the expenses were being paid for out of the revenue of our programs to ensure that, the youth sports organizations had the paint and the equipment and the fields were taken care of in the manner that is expected, which is the reason that we all decided to increase those fees this year. So with that, as we were talking about with the funds from Littleton Children's Funds, if there are any funds that are left over from the youth sports organizations, we use that to assist highway parks to be able to complete things that maybe they didn't have enough money to complete, like a deep tying aeration, or if they needed to do extra slice seeding to make sure that a field grows back very healthy. If
We
there's
repaired-
something, what's
We
that?
repaired the baseline at the high school field a couple years ago because it was a huge safety
Yeah.
hazard.
So, I just want to be really clear what those funds are being used for.
So just kind of piggyback on that, and Kate, jump in here whenever you want. I did speak to the person who had kind of put this out there. And really their knowledge of the situation had come from what they were told by the parish finance council. And there is an idea out there that we were making money off of their fields. Just to kind of put all of this in perspective, that we were charging the youth fees in order to put them out on the field. The reality of that situation, to make it in simplest form for everybody out there in TV land or anybody who wants the full picture, is this board sets a rate. That rate covers approximately 50% of what we spend on all of the green space, St. Anne's at the time included, on fertilizer, staffing, and all the maintenance that goes into caring for those fields for the entire fiscal year. To Alicia's point, if you want to see the proof of that, in the select board meeting 2 years ago, we transferred $40,000 from PRCE to highway to help cover a shortfall. So in no way is those fees that are being collected a profit. It's just helping us recoup some of that money and helping us stay in a place where we can maintain the fields, because the fields are also another thing that does not receive funding from the select board. We have our field needs study, we have those reports, and we're grossly not only understaffed, but underfunded financed for maintaining those fields. So just to clear all of that up, at no time was there a profit made off of any of the fees that were collected from the youth group for the use of St. Anne's Fields. And I think that was a large misconception that was going through the whole thing in saying, well, you know, we don't get anything for this and you're profiting off of our land. Well, no, that money was literally going directly back into, plus a lot of money directly out of other programming that the Parks and Rec Department runs. You know, the other piece to really looking at that is just if anyone has a question about any of these things, just pick up the phone and call us or call one of your park commissioners here, because all of this stuff is very thoughtfully done. It's very, you know, planned out very hard. You know, I'll say Aaron over here has gotten into the nitty gritty with us. He sent a couple emails on his own about St. Anne's this week, and it's just all about having the right information.
Right. And that's a big piece that I think, you know, is just a universal statement. If somebody tells you something and your first reaction is like shock and awe, you might want to reach out and ask some more questions to some other folks just to make sure that you have the right information. That's all.
Kate, was this on the mom's page?
It was, and I did my best to try to correct the misinformation that was out there and state the factual information rather than, you know, things that were spinning out of control. I never did get an answer about the other comment about somebody being charged to play tennis. That person didn't respond. However, the individual that made the comment about Parks and Recs benefiting from financially from St. Anne's Fields did basically correct her statement after reading what I wrote. And maybe Tim, after you spoke with her, I saw that today that she had changed her comment. But yeah, there were a few instances where yesterday where Parks and Rec came into question. Basically, almost some of our moral standings came into question, you might say. And so I was doing my best to, you know, tell the truth and stand up for what we actually are doing. We're trying to benefit our community as a whole and try to correct that course.
And I really appreciate you doing that, Kate. I genuinely do. It's something that, you know, in-house, we really can't do and shouldn't do. So the fact that, you know, you guys are there to be able to answer those questions and try to, you know, bring light to some of those situations is extremely important. And really appreciate you doing that.
Yep. I mean, it's unfortunate that it has to be done, but I'm glad I saw it so I could try to tamp it down and correct it.
Yeah. Any other questions, comments, concerns about St. Anne's lease agreement?
So what is the plan or alternative? What?
You want to cover that? Yeah.
So right now there's not really a plan. There are options. You know, obviously at any point, Dave and the Parish Finance Council can reach out and say, hey, we're really interested in talking about this. We got no response after we sent the letter of the why we can't do this. And, you know, unfortunately, we had to make other decisions because soccer and lacrosse and baseball were starting the following Monday. In my conversations with Brad Lang, he apparently has a contact now for the church that's up off Adawan. They have a very large field out back as well. Brad had initially said, hey, we'll maintain this ourselves. We'll do all this work. I had said to him, well, if we're not spending the money there and we've already bought all of this product, it probably makes sense that if we can get a long-term contract in place, that's another viable solution for us. Moving forward, we do have plans in place that we can talk to kind of offline because they're big picture things that aren't ready to necessarily be disclosed. And, you know, people will be like, oh yeah, that's really cool. I don't know if we can actually do them at this point. But if we can, it will fix our green space problem. as far as just strictly reorientation. And we've had conversations, we, meaning Alicia, myself, John, Angie, and Mike Lynn, about what are things we can do once these other fields start coming online to help our situation. But the immediate thing would either be to have St. Anne's get back on board with us and say, hey, you know, we now understand the whys and what the objective is here. Or us reach out to this other facility and say, this is what we can offer you. And this whole idea of a year-to-year contract just needs to go away. We need to do something that's more long-term, something that's going to, you know, benefit the parties in a way that everybody's comfortable with from the beginning, rather than, you know, playing this game every year of, you know, we got 600 kids chomping at the bit to go, and can we do it? Can we not do it? So that's where we're at. If we can get that contract at the other location, then we'll start trying to execute that. Otherwise, I think we can move everything around enough in the fall. I'm like 95% confident that we'll be able to execute what we need to do and pray for spring when everything else comes back online.
Did Brad send you that contract?
Or no, I haven't heard back from him since I talked to him in my office on Friday.
Gotcha.
Any other questions? New business. So this is something that's new business. So during the summer of 22 and 21, when we did our all staff training, which is where all of our summer seasonal staff comes together, we get all of their paperwork. We talk to them about how we use our timesheet system with when I work, all the little details that all of our some staff need to know. In the past, like far past, before marijuana was legal, honestly, we did do pre-screening drug tests, drug and alcohol tests for our summer staff. So in 22 and 21, we did not process any pre-screening drug and alcohol tests for the summer staff. And we were working with the town administration office prior to Anthony leaving, and human resources to discuss if this is something that we want to do for this upcoming all staff training. And we have not gotten any clarity on whether the answer is yes or no yet. And at this point, we're so close to having the all staff training that I think it makes sense for us to just say we're not going to do the pre-screening for the hiring, but institute a drug and alcohol testing policy, which I have on the next page, which I'll bring up. Also know going into this discussion that all of the seasonal staff know, and it always has been this way, has never changed, that there's a zero tolerance policy for drug and alcohol use on the job. Right, so that's not new, that's not a surprise. So they understand that. Anything you want to add, Tim?
Yeah, I think the big thing is here that we're trying to achieve is you guys are a policy board. You guys are in charge of, you know, the hiring authority of the Park and Rec staff. And really what we're looking for here is an answer. So it's very vague in our employee handbook on who gets drug tested. And that's really somebody in a safety position. And what that comes down to in the book is if you drive a vehicle or not. For our seasonal staff in particular, and take this as you will. I'm not saying that anybody does anything, whatever, but this is a policy that currently exists within the town that hasn't been brought up to current standards, right? We live in a community where pot shops are legalized and things like that. We live in a state where, you know, a lot of the people that we employ are coming home from college and they've probably been, you know, partaking if that's something that they do. You know, it's okay to drink alcohol. It's also okay to drink marijuana. Now you come for a seasonal job for us. If you like to drink alcohol, that's great. Just don't do it on the job. But if you smoke marijuana, we're going to drug test you and it's not really something, and in the particular age group that we're looking for seasonal staff, it is a huge deterrent when they can go up to Kimball's Farm or they can go to, Market Basket or Dunkin' Donuts and make the same amount of money and not have to worry about any of this stuff. And not having this answer, really affects, even some of our long-term staff coming back. And the decision that they're going to make based on what they've done for the past 7 or 8 months while they were away at school. So to Alicia's point, it doesn't negate the fact that if we think that you are under the influence on the job, that we're going to pull you from whatever we're doing, we're going to personally drive you into Shoba and do all the things that we normally would. This is just saying, like, we are not going to do a pre-screen drug test. The only way that we would drug test you is if you put yourself in that situation.
So I will pull up. I also have printouts for all of you, so you can read over it. This isn't anything different from what the town policy really is. Because even before, asking you guys to review this and to bring this policy into effect, it still was that if we felt that someone was under reasonable suspicion, Tim or I could say that person has been there on suspension. We're gonna go get a drug test right now. With the results, then we can make a decision on your employment or what the results of that will be. So that has always been something that we have been able to institute, and I will say we never have had to, luckily. So, the main gist of this is just that any seasonal employees whose functions require them to operate or maintain vehicles or machinery, or have public safety responsibility, that is a very wide, are we talking about fire department and police, or are we talking about camp counselors? It's a very wide understanding of what that could be, but that we would screen or test them following any sort of workplace accident, a possible violation of the safety rules, during and after an employee's participation in alcohol or drug counseling or rehabilitation program, or for us, the most important one, upon reasonable suspicion that the employee is under the influence of alcohol or drugs. So this just talks about, what we would require, what would happen if there is a positive test, and just very clearly stating that, if a person would test positive, that there is a potential that they could be dismissed from that position. So I will leave it at that and see what questions all of you have.
You need to make a motion on that?
I would like to, because we have all staff meeting, which I think it's gonna be before our next park committee meeting.
It's Wednesday, it's literally the next day.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
are trying to fill some positions right now, and it's not the deal breaker, but it's just one of those things that we've been asking for a policy. You guys are a policy board. This is a opportunity for us to say, this is going to be our policy for our seasonal staff, that we're not going to do the pre-screening drug test, but we are still going to follow all these other particulars.
Yeah, I make a motion that we move forward with allowing you to do away with any sort of pre-screening tests, the seasonal employees.
I guess maybe
What's that?
discussion.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I
No, that's fine. No, go ahead.
I fully think, I think that makes sense in terms of, I'm supporting not having pre-screening, that's fine. I don't think this is the department's issue, but very unclear on the value of marijuana testing related to accidents or anything else.
Right.
I'm not sure what we learned from it.
Being.
Not my expertise,
Right.
but
Being a government organization and having the zero tolerance policy, that's something, so the discussions that I had with Ann Essman, who is our HR, what was her title? HR, I don't know. She wasn't the director, but she ran HR essentially. But the discussions that we would have are that until there has been some sort of litigation that has happened that creates some sort of precedent, that nothing can change necessarily within the parameters of what government is, right? And the reality is that with this testing, you can't tell the difference between if someone has the chemical THC in their system versus whether they are actually high at that moment. Because the testing is going to show, like within, I think it's 35-day window, that if you imbibed at any time, that's going to show that it's in your system. So the testing is not great. Whereas alcohol, you can tell right then and there, like, yes, they have a, breath, what's the word? I'm looking for? Yes,
Yeah.
blood alcohol level of X, Y, and Z. But it doesn't work the same with marijuana. But unfortunately, that is something that, until the rules and the policies change through litigation, it's not something we can really change.
So it doesn't just have to be a workplace accident, right? It could be like they fell asleep on the job, let's say, because they're, if they were imbibing, or they were swerving while they were driving or something. It doesn't have to come down to like an accident happening, right?
No, so that's why that is one of those pieces where it's like, if there's a workplace accident, we could ask for a drug test to happen. But in our case, more than likely, because we do, watch the staff pretty well, that it would be upon reasonable suspicion.
Got it. I didn't see that written in here. Is that?
Yep, it's in the.
this line,
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Or upon reason. Got it.
So those would be the four places that we would be able to use this. So if following a workplace accident, if there was any violation of safety rules during or after employees' participation in an alcohol or drug counseling or rehabilitation program. And then that last one is upon reasonable suspicion that the employee is under the influence of alcohol or drugs.
Okay.
I think the biggest piece to this is not necessarily what would we do if somebody showed up incapacitated, because we know exactly how we would deal with that
100%,
situation, right?
yeah.
The biggest piece to this is for 2 years, we have told all of our staff that it is legal in the state of Massachusetts and we do not have pre-screening. This year, it was brought up that, oh, well, we might do the pre-screening. We never got an answer on that. We still don't have an answer on that. And one of the things that could come to play is if the answer was yes, we are now within that window before our staff orientation time where anybody who had partaked in a legal activity at any point is now most likely going to test positive and not be able to be employed for the entire summer.
Yes.
So that's the biggest issue here is more the pre-screening than what happens if you are an idiot and show up to work under the influence.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Do we have seasonal employees that are under 18?
I was gonna say they're all under 20, 21.
Or under-
They aren't, you'd be surprised.
Oh.
So
Under
yes,
21, I would say it's about 60%.
Under 18?
30%.
Okay, how is that dealt with?
I mean, that's a zero tolerance
But I
policy.
mean,
right?
but is there parental permission required to go do this or consent, or I guess that falls on the.
I think that's in the employee handbook that they
Yep.
sign.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because they do sign the drug and alcohol policy in the employee handbook. Right now, we're just talking about that, like, hey, we haven't done this for 2 years and no one's giving us an answer either way. And we believe that based off of this past 2 years and the direction that we've been given, that the non-pre-screening thing is an okay way to go. You know,
Yeah.
knock on wood, past 2 years, we haven't had any issues. 3 if you include COVID, because we didn't
Right.
do it during the COVID summer
Right.
either.
And we did run in 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did run programs.
I feel you have to have.
Thankfully, we ran in 2020.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel you have to have something like this at your disposal. If, I mean, we're talking, you know, these young men and women are in charge of other people's children. They have big responsibilities, and someone's toting the line and floating on that line of, you know, making good or bad decisions, you know, and you guys decide, or someone decides that that decision might be influenced by something they're doing to themselves, then
Right.
you guys need to have the right to take a test and see if that person is doing something that they shouldn't be doing. I mean, unfortunately, it's one of those things where you'd hate to have oh gee, we should have,
Right.
but what if we had just,
Right.
and you know, and it's, the cost is too much to me, you know what I mean?
And that's why being proactive is always better than
And I
reactive.
like the wording where it's, you know, reasonable suspicion. It's not just, hey, you backed up the truck into a, you know, a pole, now we're gonna start, you know, drug testing everybody, you know, that's on the property. It's like, you know, okay.
That's like
He may have just had,
typical
yeah,
16-year-old.
he might be half asleep and a dumb teenager, which, you know, I still act like a dumb teenager half the time, so. But I think having that at your disposal is very important, at least that's how I feel.
I think
Anyone
we're ready
else?
now. You're-
Oh, I would like to, I need to adjourn. I would like to.
We're almost there, my friend.
I would like to, propose that we accept the ability of allowing seasonal employees to not have to take a pre-screening drug test for the parking rack.
And adopt this as a policy.
And adopt this as a policy moving forward.
I'll second.
All in favor, Kate,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Aaron,
Yes.
and I'm a yes.
Brilliant. This guy. All right, so this is awesome. So Tim is officially the president of the Massachusetts Recreation Parks Association, MRPA, for 23-24. So he will be leading the way for all recreation and parks departments in Massachusetts this next upcoming year. So
Congrats.
huge honor. He's here in Littleton. We're very lucky. So congratulations.
Track all the work.
No, not at all. I mean, just, you know, to that effect, it is a board just like this. It's elected by our peers and, you know, we do some really great stuff. And one of the benefits and one of the reasons that I got involved, at this level with the MRPA is, you know, from a very early point in working with our colleagues, you know, in belonging to the organization, the wealth of knowledge and the things I was able to bring back to the town and, you know, the connections that, you know, not only myself, but Alicia and Kaz and everybody who's part of the organization has been able to do, has really paid dividends for our department and helped us kind of really push the envelope to be, you know, a department of 5 with one of the, you know, in my opinion and in the opinion of a lot of our colleagues, one of the most robust rec departments in the state of Massachusetts of its size. Yeah. So that's, you know, really one of the things that it's definitely something that's, you know, really worthy to the town. We have, you know, monthly meetings in our region where we meet with the other rec departments here in the Northeast. Most recently, all of us 2 weeks ago attended the annual conference, which took place in Norwood this year. just as my annual reminder to all of you, you were all also a part of the Massachusetts Park and Rec Association, as well as the National Park and Rec Association.
Yes.
And you guys are all invited to these meetings. You can go to the conference and do the different educational sessions. One of the charges that I have as president this year is, we are trying to build out those learning opportunities throughout the year. So we have a wonderful therapeutic recreation group that is doing a lot more stuff with TR to try to build that in the state of Massachusetts. We're doing classes more related to boards and committees and aquatics and things like that that are going to pop up for learning opportunities for everyone in the community. So it's really something that's, come a long way even in the last 5 years for us to be able to learn and grow and do all of these things. If you want to come and have fun, we have some pretty amazing socials that we do quarterly that you guys can show up to. We have an awesome golf tournament in the fall. So, it's one of those things that I don't know if any of you have met Ken Carilla, who's our new program coordinator, but he is also a park commissioner in Belmont. So, when we look at this group of people, it is an organization where we have these meetings. You can pick up the phone and call a park commissioner. We have all of those resources available in the MRPA directory. You can say, hey, when I get together for coffee, my director, my assistant director telling me this, like, can I get a baseline on this? Or have you ever dealt with this? Dog parks, skate parks, all of these kind of things. So, it's a great resource to have. I'm super honored that I was elected by my peers, and I'm going to have the ability to lead this group for the 2023-2024 and, work with the executive board and all of our regional chairs. And then, hopefully, just continue to help grow, parks, rec, and leisure services in the state of Massachusetts. This group made the biggest impact of any group that I've really ever worked with over COVID. And that was one of the things that really kind of kept us going, allowed us to get the beach open, allowed us to get camp open, was the we would have Zoom meetings for 8 hours a day, every day. And we would talk about camps and beach and policies, and we shared those things and what's your signage look like, and can we have a secret COVID meetup, and just couple us, and we'll stand 6 feet apart, but we really need to see this in person before we go to all of our select boards and say, we're going to do this, and we know that it's going to work. So it's an awesome group to be a part of. And I really implore you guys to be part of it as well. Utilize the resources both through the MRPA and the NRPA. And if you guys wanted to, you get the national conferences in Dallas, Texas this year. So it'll be a good time.
We write that off. You guys like pay for
You can make whatever vote you want, Aaron.
So this explains my new emails.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So, all right, but thank you very much.
That's really-
Congrats.
thank you for doing that. That's a huge, that's huge. Yeah. Okay. Last piece was with old business. The governor did sign a bill to extend the remote meeting policy through March 31st, 2025. That is correct, 2025. So we can continue to have hybrid meetings till then. Yes.
I know it's not on this slide, and I meant to tell Alicia, but just two very important things that we are following with the MRPA.
Yes.
So number one, there's a bill that is going to be voted on as early as June 12th, which will ban all turf fields in the state of Massachusetts.
Synthetic turf.
Synthetic turf fields.
Are we
So
better term? Yes.
alumni is.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to go with that. Mainly, it is tied to a couple of reports and findings that came out. I can forward you guys all that information, but the way that it is written is that it's effective as soon as it would go into place, but there would be no more projects allowed to start. And every field, once it has gotten to the end of its useful life, would need to be replaced with grass. So just be aware that that's something that we're following. The other thing that we're following is a big thing that impacted us 5 years ago, which was actually ironically enough also passed on June 12th, was Christian's Law. So 2 weeks before the start of our camp season, we were told every kid needs to be swim tested, spit, all the life jacket stuff. If you've ever been to Camp T, that was something that we got 8 days before we were going to open camp that summer. Everybody had to become compliant in that amount of time. This year, there's an amendment to Christian's Law that eliminates one word. So that word is not. when that word goes away, now it applies to not only open water, but pools as well. So the impact that that gives us to is our field trips to water parks, our field trips to other communities that have pools, things like that. It puts Christians Law into play with that. Water safety is one of our top things that we want to do. But one of the things that Christians Law on the flip side does is it makes it very hard for facilities to financially be able to meet the requirement and also meet the safety constraints. It also makes it very hard for parents who are not necessarily in a position to be buying life jackets for all of their kids to, put their kids in the safest positions. So we do follow these things. Those are the two biggest ones that we're kind of looking at right now, along with, all the policies that we do follow. And the alumni field thing could potentially be a big thing for us down in the future. So keep an eye on it.
Stay tuned.
Has there been any outreach to our representatives? Do we know where they?
So we have an executive board meeting where we are currently discussing the verbiage on a form letter for each of the directors to send to their senators, which is typically what we'll do. Currently, we're just kind of waiting to see what the stance is on that. It's kind of tricky because you don't necessarily want to take the position of, if there is a problem, are you putting people in danger by continuing to utilize this? Because there's not, it's like anything else. You can make statistics say whatever you want. So is that study correct? Or is that study not correct? But the other piece is you're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars of impact, possibly billions of dollars of impact that's going to come out of this. So, part of that is, putting steps in place that if this is going to go through, that make it manageable for towns, for municipalities, for whomever's being impacted, to be able to get to the completion in a reasonable way without having to just say, well, we can't do sports because we don't have a field.
And I do, as I recall, the town chose not to use recycled rubber in the field, so.
I don't know enough about the project.
Yeah, they did use a crumb rubber that is, it's not just the ground up tires, like it's actually a safer version. But again, I mean, we had, the good, better, best, right? So it was you can go with the ground up tires, you can go with this better fill that had like a specific percentage. And then there was also a possibility of doing cork, right? And that was insanely expensive. So, we chose to go with the better route. But again, I haven't had a chance to look at any of this research, so I don't know what they studied, what results are, I know none of the variants at all. Variables of how they got to where they got to.
The two main things that they're saying are the key issues are there is some sort of brain cancer that they're linking to this particular setup. And the other piece is that the pellets are, especially for like goalies and things like that, where they're being kicked towards and things like that, are embedding themselves in their lungs, similar to like asbestos, where it doesn't like. So those are the two main things that are brought up. Like I said, I haven't read enough into it to really understand, like, is this stuff that has a lot of data behind it, or is, I don't know that answer. There's more to come on it, but this was just put on as a thing in the end of February, and they're trying to vote on it by June.
I will say those little pellets from Alumni Field travel far and wide.
Everywhere, not just alumni, every field. Yep. Yeah.
Yes, Norm was commenting how many pellets he has in his house as well.
Yes, and an amazing amount of vacuuming is needed daily.
Yep. Don't eat them.
Don't breathe them, don't eat them. Okay.
Aaron.
I would make a motion that we adjourn this meeting for the evening.
I'll second.
Kate,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Aaron,
Yes.
I'm a yes, motion is adjourned, thank you, everybody. And